Well, James Gunn was on hand for the Big Creature Commandos panel, and boy did he drop a ton, and I mean a boatload of details about the upcoming DCU, and answered fans' questions on stage. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about the big highlights from that event. He talked about Superman, Lanterns, Supergirl, the future of the DCU, and how they're going to handle these projects, so it's probably the biggest information dump directly from Gunn since the announcement of the new DCU. Well, like we've been saying, this weekend is New York Comic-Con, one of the biggest events in the country, and it often sees both Marvel and DC show up with some big projects to share with fans. Now, yesterday, James Gunn actually was on hand for the Creature Commandos panel, and after they spent a good time talking about the Commandos, he dove into some pretty exciting updates for the DCU. There's so much going on, there's a ton of projects coming down the pipe, and although Gunn wasn't revealing any spoilers, he did share a lot of details about each one. The filmmaker started by promising that Superman star David Cornsweet will, and I quote, is going to blow people the F away. He's the best physical action star I've probably ever worked with. Rachel Brosnahan, people are going to die for her as well. Now, we know the whole movie is in the can, and they've already finished up on set, so Gunn has been looking at this footage for months, and obviously he's going to hype up his own movie, but he's typically pretty straight with fans. A little caveat, he did tell us The Flash was one of the best movies ever. Clearly it wasn't, but I am still super confident in Superman. They did ask him when we were going to finally see something from the film, maybe a sneak peek or a trailer, and Gunn said, quote, "There's no trailer yet. It won't be too long, but it won't be too soon." Now, CCXP down in Brazil is in December, and Gunn is a huge fan of the event and already has confirmed he's going to be there, so let's stick a pin in the calendar for that in December, and hopefully we finally get our first look at Superman just a few weeks from today. Now, Gunn also talked a little bit of Supergirl, and it's one of the biggest updates for Woman of Tomorrow we've had in a long time. He said, "We start shooting in England in January. I just saw the screen test with Millie Alcock. It's based on Tom King's Woman of Tomorrow." Anna Nagura came and pitched the story, and it was just one of the best pitches I've ever heard. She immediately wrote a first draft that was great, and it just got better and better. So it sounds like Supergirl is moving along pretty well. Now, I have heard a couple of reports that this script was one of the best ones people have ever read, and left most people reading it in absolute tears. If you've read the comic, you know it is an emotional comic. So the fact that these are the initial results, and the script sounds strong, well, that's a great bit of news for the Supergirl project. Now, he did go on that he's been watching screen tests with Millie Alcock, and actresses trying out for the role of Ruthie, which is one of the other major characters in the film, suggesting to me we're probably only days away from an announcement there. That's what happened with Lanterns. We found out there were screen tests, and shortly thereafter, we found out who was our new John Stewart. Now, as for Lanterns, Gunn didn't give as many details, but some of them were pretty curious. He actually revealed that he had already considered Aaron Pierre for Guardians of the Galaxy, and he was very nearly Adam Warlock, which would have been an interesting cast, but I think I prefer him in the role of John Stewart. He went on to say that him and Kyle Chandler are, and I quote, "so good together as Hal and John that you will be hooked on the two the moment they hit the screen." Now, this is the exact kind of chemistry you want from a leading pair like this, especially our Hal Jordan and John Stewart, and the back and forth between these two really polar opposite personalities within the core is going to be key to making this project work and giving the Lanterns a different kind of vibe than other heroes, because just because you're a Green Lantern doesn't really mean you're a duplicate of other characters, and every Lantern has a unique personality. Sounds like it's coming through in that project. One of the other things James Gunn did was address the DC status quo, but I'm going to leave it to you to decide whether his comments clear things up or make the whole reboot notion, well, distinctly more confusing. He said, "Every project of DC Studios will be its own thing. Everything is going tremendously well. Superman, Supergirl, Lanterns, they are all part of this cinematic universe, but every one of those things will be very different aesthetically." Which honestly makes it very clear each DCU project is going to have its own visuals, style, and allow the director and the creative team to go where they want to go with it, even though they all still exist in the same universe. You'll notice Creature Commandos in that new trailer was awfully bloody, and clearly TVMA. Not everything else is going to do that, and obviously Gunn is going to allow the creatives to do their thing the way they want to do it. That's how you make good movies. He did go on to talk a little bit about what was canon and what wasn't canon, and I'm not sure this clears it up, but at least we know what we're looking for. He said, "We learned that the other things that have happened in the past in other media have still happened. There are references to things that have happened in the past, and those references then become canon in the DCU because we mention them. Okay, this was not what I was expecting from Gunn, and probably the muddiest answer, but if you break it down, I guess it starts to make a little bit of logical sense. Basically, what he's saying is, anything in the old DCEU could or could not have happened in this world, and they'll clarify that as they move through the story, referencing events from the past. Now, this is probably how Peacemaker Season 2 is not tied to Peacemaker Season 1, and will allow Gunn to pick and choose whatever he wants to use moving forward. Remember, executive decisions are often made over his head, even on creative projects he worked on. He's the boss now, so he gets to steer the ship, and I'm sure he wanted to make some changes, and I guess this will work. Also, keep in mind, the Flash movie, which basically closed out the old DCEU, even though Aquaman came after, it obviously affected many of the timelines, leaving us with George Clooney as Batman at the end. Well, this should have been a sign that anything could happen moving forward, and basically Gunn is using that as an opportunity to pull things off the game board and replace them with all his new toys. Now, we still have one more day of New York Comic Con. I'm really not sure what else is going to come our way. DC has really dropped some big punches at this week's event, so I am curious on what's going to come our way on Sunday. It was nice to see Gunn on stage talking about all these projects. There was a lot else said by other actors and people at the event, and lots of those little clips are showing up on social media, so make sure you bounce around, check them out. Sounds like everybody across the board is excited. Frank Grillo had some interesting things to say, and it's clear to me the new DCU is here to stay, and it might turn out to be something very special. But we're going to have to wait and see. Now, before you take off, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, ring that bell for all the updates, and make sure you get every notification because we do daily Marvel and DC content and we don't want you to miss any news.